here at Algonquin Regional High School. My name is Greg Martineau, and I have the privilege of serving as your superintendent. Joining me this evening, we have a number of folks. We have Keith Lavoie, to my right. He's the Assistant Superintendent of Operations. We have Becky Pellegrino, who's the Director of Finance. We have, who else do we have? Sean Bevan, Principal of Algonquin Regional High School. We have Paul Desmond, Regional School Committee, also co-chair of the Athletic Complex Project Committee. We have David Roman, who's also the co-chair of the Athletic Complex Project Committee. And we have Kathy Hervel, who is the lead architect and engineer for Gale Associates. And we've been partnering with Gale for, I would say, almost 8 years on this project. So this evening, really, we have 3 goals. The first goal is to provide you an overview of the project and talk about the timeline and what we hope to accomplish. The second goal is to articulate the why. Why do we think this project is important, and how we think it will benefit our students here at Algonquin Regional High School, but also the community at large. And then thirdly, we hope to answer any questions you have, any concerns you might have or ideas that you want to bring to the table. So you can walk away feeling more informed about this project. And when you go to town meetings, you have information you need to make an informed decision moving forward. So in terms of where we are, so this project actually, thinking of this project actually started in 2014 and 13. The Boosters Athletic Club actually funded a feasibility study of looking at our athletic complex. So we actually, Boosters and the district partnered with Gale in 2013-14, and we did schematic design. The work really didn't go any further than that, and it sat dormant for a number of years. And then in 2020, we re-engaged Gale Associates, hired them to think about schematic design, feasibility, and go a little bit deeper into the project. So we've been working with Gale very closely for the past 2 years, and we are at the point now where we are going through permitting, 100% cost estimate design, in preparation for if this project passed, we'll be able to move forward with the project. So again, planning, spring 2022, October, we've really been thinking about kind of the formal process of getting all of our bid materials and documents, and then really since December, really trying to engage the community, sharing information and making sure people have good information.
It's going to give you the good one.
Next slide, Keith. So I'm going to turn it over to Keith, who will share a little bit about current conditions.
Thank you, Greg. That's a great opportunity to kind of show you where we are now, but to even take it further back. One of the key parts that we're trying to do through this whole exercise is making sure that we get the best information in front of everyone so they know why we're here. So I know that was one of the goals that Greg wants to set out, and the key part about it is understanding the current conditions of the complex. So there's really been 2 buckets that we've put this in. It's that certain areas of the complex have gone beyond their useful life, and the second are concerns about health and safety. So this slide does break it down for you. The areas that are beyond its useful life, we've really focused on 4 areas. One is the stadium field itself, the track that surrounds it, the tennis courts, and the multi-purpose field, which is also known as the JV field. So I'm going to start with the track. And really, when you look at the track, you can see it does need to be repaired, but many have asked, why don't we just put a new top surface on it? Well, through Gale and through our analysis of it, the degradation of the track goes well beyond the top surface and really gets into its base layer. So through the work that Gale's been doing for the last 8 years for us, that has probably been one of the most paramount features of whatever we decide to do would be a reconstruction of the track from the base layer all the way up. The second area is the stadium field, and although I think the maintenance team has done an amazing job of keeping that grass field up to snuff, what's happened over the years, just like any type of grass surface with soil underneath, it becomes compacted, it erodes, it gets different types of peaks and valleys, and I think any coach can attest that they know exactly where those divots are on the field. So coupled with that is soil compaction, and you will hear that a couple of times about the current conditions. The stadium field definitely has had its use and therefore has gone beyond its useful life. So just some of the logistics about it is that the stadium field and the track were not part of the 2004 renovation. The stadium field itself was just top dress and overseeded at that time. And the track was reconstructed in 1994 and then was top coated in 2009. So both of which has given us great life. We've gotten a ton of use out of both those particular parts of the complex, but it has come to that end of useful life. Similarly is the multi-purpose field. The multi-purpose field, also known as the JV field, it's not uncommon to see a dirt or mud patch right through the middle of it, even after a couple of uses in the fall or the spring. It's one of those areas that does get a tremendous amount of use, and the soil compaction is pretty evident, and the soil degradation is there as well. So it's similar. As far as understanding the current conditions, the stadium field is not too dissimilar from the JV field, or we're going to be calling it the multi-purpose field. And lastly, the tennis courts. The tennis courts were part of the 2004 renovation project, which is important to understand, and it has done pretty well with our New England winters and has given us almost a solid 20 years, which is about the life expectancy you would have for tennis courts in this region. One of the benefits of what Gail is proposing is that we hope to get 20-plus years out of the next rendition through some thoughtful engineering and different ways of laying down the asphalt. So those are all important to understand, and one of the things we're going to offer is that Athletic Director Masserino, I think he was just in, he had to step out, but he's put the lights on out on the field for everyone to take a peek. So after the presentation's complete and questions are answered, you're welcome to take a walk out onto the track, out onto the field, and get a feel for the conditions, especially under the lights. So that's a nice segue into the next part of one of the key parts of what we want to improve is the lighting on the stadium field is insufficient. You will see very clearly out that there are light and dark spots. Not to mention, if any type of ball goes up into the air, it's very, very difficult to see. So one of the benefits we have with the proposed project is some state-of-the-art lighting that not only has a nice even light throughout, it's good for all types of competition, and it is highly energy efficient. So we're really looking forward to the advantages of that. And as soon as we do any type of construction project of this scale, we need to be compliant with ADA. It's very important that the Americans with Disabilities Act is tried and true throughout, and that's one of the benefits of leaning on Gail. Gail has done these types of projects in many different venues. Ours is not different. One of the things we're looking at doing is right now we have no ramping to our grandstand and no elevator to the grandstand, to the press box. So those will be two key parts of that, so we make sure that the entire community can be spectators and enjoy the space. The other benefit we're seeing as far as ADA is that entire campus that's going to be touched is that every corner of it will have ADA compliant pathways to make sure that we're in check. And one of the last things we're going to do is the amenities building, which is commonly known as the McDonald's house. As soon as we touch this project, we have to make sure that we have adequate restroom facilities. So the two pieces of that is we need to add 11 female restrooms to the amenities building, as well as one male to be in compliance. So that is definitely going to be as part of the scope and scale of the project. And thankfully, within those walls, we're able to get it done through some creative engineering. So very thoughtful stuff. So those are the current conditions as we see, and we'll be happy to answer any questions about that. So I'll kind of stop it there, and happy to answer anything before I turn it over to Kathy Herval. Anything about safety or areas of concern? Perfect. Kathy, all yours. Do you want to go right from here? Okay, just push it down. I'll be with you.
All right, perfect. All right, I'll welcome everyone, and we're really excited about this project. As they said, Gail's been working with the school district for almost 8 years or so, and nothing we like to see more than these projects come through. And as Keith said, the stadium, the track, your facilities are in pretty poor condition. We've done numerous evaluations, including track cores, things along those lines, to give you the best facility that we can, and also make sure that it's going to last for years to come and get you your best bang for your buck. But with that, our improvements, starting with the stadium field, as we mentioned, the track, normal track, well-maintained, which means it's resurfaced like every 8 years, will last about 18 years. A track surface, and the same thing with the tennis courts, there's pavement underneath, and just like your roadways, it apparently, it eventually will deteriorate, cause cracks, and those cracks, unfortunately, then you see them on the surface, whether it's the track and the tennis courts, and that's why what we're proposing for the new track is to go in. We're going to pulverize the old pavement to reuse it to save costs. And then come back in, fill in some additional paving to meet the final spec for a nice smooth track, and then come in and resurface it. The track currently has what we call a 104-foot radius, which is what we call the D areas, which are your curves on the end. What we're proposing, actually, we're a little limited because we do have existing properties pretty directly behind us. Oh yeah, let's do that one. Yep. All right, this helps a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, we're kind of limited with direct properties to, north is up the page, just so you know. But what we're proposing to do is to increase those radiuses on the track to about 109. What that does, it allows us to provide bigger fields, regulation fields, but also to provide longer safety runouts around those fields, which right now, like your soccer and such, it's very limited. So it's something that we shoot for to make the whole facility safer. So we come in and do, like I said, the new track, resurface it with a product called BSS 100. It's pretty standard to what you've seen, kind of the red tracks out there, top of the line. The next thing is to, within that track, while we're doing the track, putting in the new synthetic turf field. As part of the track construction, we'll be installing a drain that goes all the way inside the track around the inside circumference of the track, which allows the track to drain towards the field, and then tie all that into the proposed turf field, which does also have an elaborate drainage system underneath it. The intent of the turf field is to get more playtime. The combination of a turf field with lights can provide 3 times more playtime for the various sports and youth groups and such. So that's the goal. Your normal grass field can only take about 250 hours of play a year with a well-maintained on top of that without needing rest or then starting to deteriorate as these have gone quite some time with a lot of overuse and compaction, as Keith had talked about. So we're putting in the new turf field. It'll include all the various sports: soccer, lacrosse, women's, men, football, and field hockey, and even some rugby. We're kind of polishing through which lines will be permanent, which ones won't, things along those lines within the turf. In addition to that, as Keith said, we're going to be putting in a new grandstand to bring the facility up to ADA compliant. We're also upgrading some of the parking, ADA handicap parking, because there's a few spots out there that don't meet compliance, so we want to make sure we meet that. As he said, all walkways and such will also comply, and you'll be able to walk from one end of the field around the outside to the other over to the proposed amenities building, completely on ADA compliant walkways. And in addition to this, as he said, we're going to put in new athletic lighting, preferably the Musco. They're pretty much all over the country. They're the top of the line. As we said, they LED lighting, very high tech. The technology of the athletic lighting has come a long way. Old lights used to shine across the field. They now shine down. The poles are a tad higher. The lights shine down. They have screens and such that minimize glare, and they also have what they call minimal uplighting to help with seeing the ball at night and things along those lines. And then the next phase would be, not phase, but the second part of the project is to do a turf synthetic field at the JV multipurpose. Again, it'll include all the various sports. It'll have its detailed under drain system. We're posing a few kind of portable bleachers for some of those. We do have new scoreboards at both facilities proposed. And then the last part of the scope is the tennis courts. Similar to the track, the paving underneath is deteriorated. We've had significant cracking. And something that isn't showing up on the master plan here is we're hoping to take 2 of the tennis courts and convert those to basketball and pickleball for more community use and such. So with that, I think that kind of covers what's proposed.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
I'm sure there'll be questions for you. So the next phase of this we want to make sure that we're clear about is the community benefits that exist. Certainly the student athletes will benefit from it, as you can see and has been shared before, but also our Algonquin students. Physical education teachers are very excited about the ability to use the facility, and that's key. We've also had a number of questions from residents about the use of the track and tennis courts, especially with the addition of pickleball and basketball, which is just an added benefit. The performing arts, one thing that we didn't mention as part of the master plan is an amphitheater, and I'll show a picture of it in a little bit, but right in this section right here of the JV baseball field will be an amphitheater that will allow access for the performing arts, and also a benefit to classes. One of the silver linings of COVID is that many classes like to go outside, and we want to provide a venue for them. So in consultation with Principal Bevan, we thought this would be a great addition, and our Fine and Performing Arts Chair, Amy Collins. So we've done some good work there in preparation for the different uses. I also can see it used as a community, for community concerts as well as Apple Fest, definitely at the top of the list. So the other pieces that we want to share, and this is key to know about the current conditions, is at present, we're really not able to share the facility. Very limited sharing of the facility is allowed with our youth groups because our fields need to be rested or they're being overused. So one of the reasons why we're deciding to go in the direction of turf is, like Kathy mentioned, exponentially we increase the availability of the fields to our youth groups. And that's something obviously we're going to be working through. This is going to be a brand new type of system that we're going to have to work out, but we're going to be in collaboration with all those youth groups to make sure that can provide as much access as possible while still maintaining the integrity of the programs here at Algonquin. So we'll make sure to work that out as the project unfolds. And we've been in contact with a lot of our youth groups over the last month or so to have them have the opportunity to ask us questions, and it's been a great exchange of ideas. So, drum roll. Where's Becky? All right. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Pellegrino, our Director of Finance, to review the finances related to the project.
Definitely need this down. So as you can see, the total estimated project cost for the athletic complex is $7,539,000. We'll say $900. We have divided this up based on the regional agreement. So as part of the regional agreement, for any debt that is incurred by the regional school district, we do look back at the previous 4 years enrollment as of October 1st, and we calculate an average of those 4 years. So Northborough, at this point in fiscal year 24, it would be a 62.33% allocation, and then for Southborough, it would be 37.67%. So Northborough's estimated cost is just about $4.7 million, while Southborough's is $2.8 million. So as part of this project, we have been working closely with our financial advisor to develop some different scenarios. And one of the scenarios that we did ask is that we look at the fact that the renovation for Algonquin does come off the books in both communities in fiscal year 27. So we have built some assumptions into these scenarios that we're presenting here tonight. First of all, this project cannot be bonded for any longer than 15 years. And we have also used a percentage rate or an interest rate of 3.5%, and according to our financial advisor, that is a good rate for moving forward. So you'll see that even though we're doing the project in fiscal year 2024, we will be issuing bond anticipation notes in that year. And so the first payment on those bond anticipation notes will not be due until fiscal year 2025. It's the district's intention to continue to issue bond anticipation notes up until fiscal year 2026, when we would go out for our permanent financing of a general obligation bond. As part of that, in fiscal year 2027, we would then have our first payment where we would be making payments on both the principal and the interest of this project. And then it would continue up until 2038. So we have also calculated out the projected cost to the average taxpayer in each of the communities. And you can see that, again, in Southborough, the first initial impact really will be in fiscal year 2027, where it will be the 1 year will be both the renovation project as well as the athletic facility project. That would be a tax impact. And so initially, we are looking at a tax rate increase for that year of 26 cents per thousand for the taxpayer in Southborough. And then in Northborough, it would be 31 cents per thousand for the average taxpayer in Northborough.
Thank you, Becky. So as we kind of wrap things up, I do want to make sure people are aware of where to go to get more information. We have populated an FAQ, as well as some of the slides that you've seen here tonight on our website, which is gonkplex.org. We are updating that as questions have come in. So if anything comes up tonight, we'll certainly be adding that to the FAQ as we go. So now I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you may have. We do have a mic, and we are recording it. Owen's in the back there doing his thing. So if you have a question, would like to use that microphone in the aisle, that would be great. And then anyone that has presented so far will be available. Be happy to answer any questions. Yes, go ahead and I'll repeat it. I'll save you a walk. Mm-hmm. Actually, I could, and Kathy could as well. So the question was about the 25% contingency that's added in. Do you want to answer it here so Owen can get it on the record? Just make sure you get to that.
Yep. The reason, it's actually been reduced to 20%, and as the project, as we go into bid, it'll be reduced again. We started a lot of our projects, as many projects, due to the economic nature of today's market and price, vulnerability and such. So we have found that, we haven't used it, but for planning purposes for our clients, we've started with that because we want to prepare them for, kind of the worst case. Now, keep in mind, this cost estimate was started probably almost 2 years ago, and we've been refining. And as we go into our final design and we have our permits, which we're working on now, we kind of leave some of that open because you just don't always know what we may have to add to meet those requirements. So. I want to say it was maybe, yep. We've reduced it to 20, and it'll go down more as we go. And
yeah, so one of the things we hope to do is we're going to go out and get a procurement. We'll have actual costs from the contractor, and we'll have a better sense of what that
yeah, we try to, and then we will work with the school to, set a certain contingency because, as you know, until you get above the ground, you're never quite sure what you're going to run into. So, Okay.
In relation to what part?
I mean, from a different consulting agency or just in general, like plan, like your plan's great, but where are the other couple options to choose from?
So we went with Gale Associates because of they've been involved with our campus for a long time and had a lot of that background that was starting to be developed in 2014. One of the best parts about going out is that this is the engineering side of the project, so we really have to dig in, make sure we're taking the proper samples and do that type of thing. When we go out to bid, it's going to be an open bid process. So the contractor that is ultimately awarded the bid will be through the competitive bid process based on the specs that will be sent out. So that's where we get that variability to the contractor part, but we have to make sure that our spec and scope are crystal clear. Follow.
What about an alternative to Gale? I mean, you seem like you have a long history with them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should try something we don't have a long history with.
Want to take it?
Yeah, so
I bet you can talk to there if you want.
So one of the things. So Gail has been working with us on schematic design, engineering. When we go out to bid, we will go through the procurement process and decide on who actually is going to construct the project. We did investigate and evaluate a number of firms. We work closely with other surrounding districts who've worked with consulting and engineering firms, and we decided to move forward with Gail. One of the things that we thought was important was the initial investment that Boosters made in 2013, 2014 for the initial schematic design. We had a conversation with Gail, and they honored the beginning work of that, and we carried that forward. In terms of who will be constructing this project, that is what is to be determined at this point in time.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say it might be worth noting too that the project itself and the scope of different components of it had been worked on by the committee, and a lot of different options for this or that was kind of discussed during that phase. So we got to the plan through that kind of planning process with a lot of the input from a variety of stakeholders. I don't know if you want to talk about the committee and.
No, good point. It wasn't mentioned, Jeff. That's a good point.
Yeah, so one of the things we did was we first spent a lot of time thinking about what the vision is of this athletic complex and what could be. We worked on several phases. We did the main stadium. We talked about having, again, a multi-purpose field. We talked about lighting. We talked about the need for improved tennis courts. We also talked about looking at the baseball and softball fields and adding that to the scope of the project. Our original thinking with the committee was around phasing it in. We had many conversations with surrounding communities who also had plans to phase in their projects. One of the things they communicated was they only were able to get to phase 1, and when it came to going to implement phase 2, there wasn't a lot of community buy-in as a result of just fatigue moving through phase 1. So the committee decided to look at this as a comprehensive plan that we would do with one project.
Good, thank you. Any other questions?
The plan calls for 1,200 seats in the bleachers.
That's correct.
Can you explain how we get to that number?
You want to take that one, Kathy? Kathy, Mike, so we can catch it.
Are there currently there, and what type of utilization of those?
The seat,
You're on. You should speak closer to it.
the number of seats was dictated by a couple of factors. First off, what we have there and the fact that we know that we needed additional seating. And then secondly, we had to expand for the handicap, to provide for handicap spaces and such, and that's dictated as well. As then the number of The reason we stuck to those seats as well was tied to the restrooms, number of restrooms. Whenever you upgrade a grandstand, based on the state plumbing code, you have to meet a certain number of restroom facilities. And we kind of worked back and forth on what we felt we could, provide without building, 20 new restrooms and things along those lines. And it actually has worked out that working with an architect that does a lot of these amenities buildings came in and, studied the existing building, and we're going to be able to add the additional restrooms facilities to meet the code and, keep the existing building and just modify it and save some costs.
Yep, just go ahead.
Yeah, so,
Is that on one? 1 second.
All right, well, I can yell.
There we go. There you go.
So I appreciate you guys putting this presentation together, and by the lack of attendance, I have to assume that this is a layup at the town meetings. However, going into the town meetings, things like that, is this going to be its own article, or is this going to be part of the community preservation? Because I know Northborough and Southborough both have CP fundings. This is recreation. This is going to be 2 different articles. I just want to make sure everybody at town meeting understands where the money is coming from. It's not just a tax raise, it's coming from different pools of money.
Yeah, so I can explain how it works in terms of being a regional school district. So in terms of the regional school system, we are like a town. We are its own entity. Obviously, we get funded through the communities of Northborough and Southborough. The way a capital project works through a regional system is that the school committee decides on which capital projects it wants to consider moving forward. It does the homework and all of the investigation, creates the project, and then ultimately tries to get buy-in from all the stakeholders, works closely with the town. Ultimately, the school committee votes to approve the project and bond the project. So the bond will actually be held by the regional school district. Once the school committee votes to approve the project at a school committee meeting, we have 2 days per the regional agreement to communicate to both towns that we plan to assess each of the communities the portion of the project. The communities then have 60 days to bring it to the legislative bodies, town meeting, to vote on the project, or vote on the debt assessment. It's a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote. If the communities don't bring it to the legislative body and take no action on the debt assessment, then it gets approved automatically. So the funding mechanism, the article, will be around the debt assessment and what we plan on issuing in terms of this project. And then the legislative body can vote up or down whether they approve it or not. In terms of CPC, so we've also been pursuing CPC funds. So we did submit applications to both of the community's CPCs. We did hear from Northborough CPC last week that it decided not to appropriate CPC funds to this project. And basically, they had other projects that they were excited about moving forward. And I don't want to speak for the CPC, but we learned that we're not getting CPC funds for this project in Northborough. Southborough CPC did decide to fund a portion of the project. Where it becomes challenging is that in terms of the bond issuance, and it's held at the regional school district, and it's apportioned by the regional agreement, it gets very complex when one community CPC funds a project and the other one doesn't. So we're working through those challenges at this time. I hope that answers your question. So.
What would happen if there was if this was to get voted down at town meeting and decided not to move forward with the proposal? How would you then
Yeah, in terms of I think, we're trying to do our due diligence and making sure we're engaging the stakeholders in sharing the story why we think this is a compelling project for taxpayers to support. If it does not pass at either one of the towns, we have to look at an alternative way of kind of moving this project forward. So there are a couple of different pathways we can take to move forward, and we're still working on what that exactly would look like. But it would be to still try to pursue the passing of this project through a different mechanism.
I think so. I'll repeat it for you. Go ahead.
Out of curiosity, what does it cost, those years that we were making do, how much was it costing us to repave things or redo things just to get it, just a limp along each year?
So the question has to do with maintenance and what was done to help, get us to this point and limp along. So there was, and please fill in, is that there was a variety of different steps I was taking. There was a lot of patching that was done to the track. The track and the tennis courts have both had patching, and since that time, a lot of those patches have peeled up and become unsafe. And the idea of to redo that would be fruitless because within months it would deteriorate pretty quickly. So the patching is no longer an option, as well as recoating at either of the surfaces would kind of be the same because the base is deteriorated as much as it is. That would be a problem. As far as the fields go, it would need just general maintenance like we would do to all of our lawns, aeration and anything like that. Gets down a couple of inches, but it really doesn't get down deep enough where the compactions occurred. So all of that is good to do, just like it is for us at our homes, but it doesn't last forever.
So if you look at our
money?
If you look
I
at
don't know.
If you look at our capital plan, which is a 5 to 7 year capital plan, you'll see that there is a line item on an annual basis to try to just repair and try to maintain a safe environment for our student athletes and our students during the day for PE classes. I would say that on average, and I'd have to look at the capital plan, but it was in the range of $30,000 to $50,000 of upkeep to try to maintain it. And that also doesn't speak to the athletic teams that had to use alternative field locations because we didn't have the fields for them to use.
Right. Go ahead. It does break it down.
I'll just point out too that we've gotten great value out of the current complex. If it were a car, this car would have 350,000 miles on it. So it's not as if we're trying to buy a new car before its end of life. We have maximized its use, and at this point, it's really a safety concern, and ADA accessibility. All those issues, we are an excellent school system. We should be able to provide an athletic complex that mirrors the great academic achievements our students are doing on a day-to-day basis.
Appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay. Do you want to say anything in closing, Greg?
No, thank you for attending this evening. I think it's important that you as community members have good information. We encourage you to attend the town meeting and make an informed decision, whether it's to support or not. Our job is really to make sure there's a compelling argument for why we think this is an important project, how we think our students will benefit and the community will benefit, and how we plan on moving forward. So if you think of questions, if you think of ideas, you can reach out to either me or Keith, and we'd be happy to sit down and talk more about the project, listen to your ideas, and hear any of your concerns. I would encourage, if you haven't had a chance, to walk the track,
Yep.
to take a look at the stadium, take a look at kind of the footprint that we currently have. The great thing about Algonquin is we do have excellent space. So I think, we have space to make upgrades and improvements, and I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, and I think our students will really benefit from this. So again, thank you for taking the time, and we'll be happy to give tours.
Thank you. Okay, have a good night. Thank you.